people are excited when your company goes and acquires somebody or you get acquired. They are excited and they're anxious also. And you got to address this sooner than let it simmer. If you let it simmer, what happens is that you lose your best talent because they don't know what you're doing. Why are you acquiring these companies? If you don't want to do anything, why did you acquire the company?
Our company, the leadership team of that company would have to approve the integration plan. And we did the same. Prior to when you did the acquisition, and as I said, I do think you should bring the other side in. It's like getting married. If you don't get someone they get married, what they're getting themselves into, you probably can't
do as much planning up front. In some cases, even before the deal happens. And people are hesitant to do that because they feel like it's a waste of time, because if it doesn't happen, then, we just waste those time. But if you have a game plan on how you're going to communicate, what the work streams that you're going to look at are going to be, who's going to lead those work streams on your side, and then you identify on the other side, you're going to be much better.
We are here to talk about the 90-day sprint. How do you unlock the potential and the value post-M&A in terms of the integration? So that's why we're here. I'm Dana Ginn. I'm the COO and co-founder of Gotara, and I know everyone here now, so thank you for joining. And I have three esteemed guests with us tonight on our panel. So Lynda Clarizio.
That's right.
And Lynda is on many boards. She's also you're the co-founder of the 98. She was also a C-suite executive at Nielsen years ago and has great experience. And I met Lynda for the first time on a phone call maybe 4 weeks ago, and she blew me away. I thought, in terms of integration, this lady knows her stuff. So really excited to have you. Thank you, Lynda.
I also, by the way, for several years ran the corporate development and M&A at that AOL. So
thank you. Thank you.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and please feel free to add to your bios as regrets are. Okay. Michael Alicea, another ex-C-suite Nielsen person, started at, I guess, VNU, and then he came to Nielsen. He was most recently the chief HR officer at Trellix Cybersecurity. He is one of the people who has the most passion for talent that I have ever seen, and it is genuine. Right, Angie? Sangeeta? So, Michael, thank you. And Michael also has tremendous experience in integrations as well. And then, of course, Dr. D. Sangeeta, she's Gotara's CEO and founder, and she also has been a C-suite at GE, where she started as a research scientist and then jumped into marketing and all kinds of things. Then went to Nielsen, so you'll see a Nielsen pattern here. Then Amazon before she started Gotara. So she also has quite a bit of experience doing integrations herself. So lots of great experience on the panel. Would you like to do anything else in terms of introductions or dive right in?
No, I think I do, just for disclosure.
Yes.
Lynda and I are also on a public board together.
Yes.
And we didn't deal with M&A integration.
That's right. Yeah, we did.
So a wealth of experience.
Yes.
I'm excited. Okay, I have questions, but as you have questions, please just jump in. This is going to be a mutual conversation. So we call this the 90-day sprint. And my first question is going to be, why 90 days? What's so important about the 90-day sprint? And Sangeeta, I'm going to start with you. Why is the first 90 days so critical post M&A integration?
What I feel is based on my experience doing it and then watching some of the companies do it. So if you do it well, the first 90 days, it's a smooth sailing. And you can also not do anything, acquire a company, and so it will not take more than 2 weeks for people to forget that you actually acquired the company and that something needs to be done. It'll be business as usual, nothing will integrate. And all the things that you put in the business development model are for nothing. You wasted money and eventually you were divested and write it off in your balance sheet at some point. And the third one is that you decide that you're going to do it, but you're not going to start now because you don't want to disturb the machine and the two companies. So let it go and we'll figure this out. So you are losing momentum then. You're just losing momentum. And people are excited when your company goes and acquires somebody or you get acquired. They are excited and they're anxious also. And you got to address this sooner than let it simmer. If you let it simmer, what happens is that you lose your best talent because they don't know what you're doing. Why are you acquiring these companies? If you don't want to do anything, why did you acquire the company? Second, if you're acquiring, going to do something, you're cooking something up behind the scenes and you're not telling me. So I'm going to go because I don't like this. So it can be very positive or it can be very negative the first 90 days. That's how I have seen it. And so I think it's very critical that the senior leaders actually take some actions right away as you decide to acquire a company. There should be a celebration. There should be an excitement. There should be changes because everybody expects changes when you acquire a company or merge a company in a way. But I'm sure these two have a lot more to add to that.
Yeah, so let's open it up. Lynda, Michael, first 90 days, why so critical?
I mean, I think Sangeeta has said a lot of the reasons. I mean, there's also just some timing reasons that are important. But I think you have a year to be SOC 2 compliant, right? When you do an acquisition, and if you don't get started on that immediately, you're going to be in trouble from a reporting standpoint if you're a public company. I think ISO also, I mean, you have you have to sort of get ahead. And if you wait, you're not only going to lose momentum, but you might miss those deadlines. And look, I'm a big believer in M&A integration plans, and it sounds so simple. Why would you acquire a company without an integration plan? But it's done all the time. It's literally done all the time. It's actually very easy to buy a company. You know, if you buy something, you put money down. It's much, much harder to put together a thoughtful integration plan and then to figure out who's going to be tasked for doing it. But the momentum is huge. Momentum is definitely a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think, Mike, that?
I mean, I think, it's what your mother always said, right? First impressions. The first 90 days allows you to really set the stage to what the ownership and the ongoing culture is going to look like. So if you do it right, you can alleviate the anxiety, and also you can create momentum, which gives you the opportunity to really integrate something. It's funny, the idea that we used to talk about this all the time, and when you have these huge companies and we buy something because they have something unique and special in the marketplace, and then we want to turn them into what we are, right? Beautiful. We want to crush the beautiful snowflake as soon as we get it. And so I think the first 90 days allows you to really get to understand the business. 80% of the problems that you'll encounter in an integration, you'll find in the first 90 days. Right, the hidden things you don't find till a bunch of later, right? The product issues or that kind of thing. And then I'd also say that it really depends upon why you bought the business in the first place. I've been in situations over 50 acquisitions, and in some acquisitions were acqui-hires. So you bought the company, we just want the talent. I don't really care about the client list because there's too many overlapping. We're just going to integrate it. That's a very different approach in the first 90 days than a situation where you have complementary businesses where the overlap is not so apparent. So you need to really keep great stability in the organization. Again, all that can be planned out as Lynda said it, good integration plans.
If I just one more thing, you're going back to the plan. I'm a big believer in sharing that with the company that you're hiring. I cannot tell you, I'm not been in the CEOs I've worked for, have done this, but I've worked for many CEOs that they want to acquire a company and they're not honest with the company part. So they say, I'm acquiring your company. You're going to have free reign. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. And they would come back to me and say, I want to fire them all and want to integrate them. You have to be honest. People are adults, right? And you have to be honest because, that sort of behavior by a CEO, I mean, ultimately people just feel like they were lied to. And so you just have to be, I'm a very big believer in honesty.
And the ones you lose are the ones you don't want to.
Right, exactly.
Right? They have options. The ones that don't have options or aren't that great, they stay.
But you would be surprised how hard it is for people to be, everyone wants to be the hero of the company. I made you feel great. And then it's left to people like me and Michael and then Sangeeta and to fix it.
So a couple of follow-ons. I'm hearing all three of you say, you got to start right away in the first 90 days. You don't wait. We were recently working with a company. The CEO said, I want to integrate immediately. The COO said, no, let it ride for 3 months so we don't make any big changes. Is there any time where waiting is a good strategy, or is it always go full out?
I mean, for me personally, I think when you acquire a business, you want to control the levers of that business. So the G&A functions get integrated right away. If you buy something because you have complementary clients, you gotta be careful, right? You gotta work from the client in. A lot of times we focus on the internal out, and that's not why you bought that business, right? And then again, we talked about acquire. It depends on why you at the business.
Brand strategy, in a sense.
Could be brand strategy for sure, but what I've seen is that absolutely right away the G&A, and then everything else gets tiered based on why you bought the business.
I mean, sometimes I completely agree with Michael, but sometimes it does make sense to stage it. For instance, I bought this company, advertising.com, and I was an AOL leader, but went to run it. It's a big part of my life and career. When we bought that company, we wanted to lead it separate for a good period. We actually were a client, AOL, of that company, but we did integrate on the HR side, on the finance side. So we did this sort of back office integration, on the tech side, on the cloud side, but we let the business as separate, and then we sort of did a reevaluation, 1 year, 2 years later, and then ultimately we did sort of bring it all together. So that was by design. That was not an acqui-hire. That was by an adjacent kick.
Yeah, I think when it's in the adjacent area, sometimes it makes sense because you're not an expert. That is, as an acquiring company, you're not an expert in that area. So it may be actually good for them to let it run and you learn from it. And the only things you do integrate is just the back office and stuff. One of the things I wanted to say was, because your question was about COO is not agreeing.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that, Michael, you said. I think the leaders have to get on the same page. Maybe there is something that needs to be done later, but they have to get on the same page. You cannot have a CEO and COO to be on 2 different pages. And the best way what I believe is to do that is to work backwards from the customer and backwards from the revenue you're going to make. Forget the internal stuff and say, how will the customer benefit from this? How will our revenue grow from this? And if it makes sense, we're going to do it. Otherwise, why did you buy this business? We shouldn't have bought it.
Yeah.
Well, there is no point in sitting on it once you buy a business. Something has to happen.
Which is what all 3 of you are saying.
Yeah.
Take advantage of those levers right away.
Yep.
What about the alignment of the leadership team you just mentioned? So when can you do that? Because a lot of times you got to wait till close before you bring everybody together. When do you bring the leadership team together and say, we got to all agree on our path forward, what the plan is, what we're going to keep, what we're going to retire? When should that happen?
Before you buy the company. They want to be approved before you buy the company. It should be approved beforehand.
Both leadership, because in some cases, they don't bring both leadership teams together before signing, because not everyone's in the know.
Yeah. Well, when I was the acquirer, our company, the leadership team of that company would have to approve the integration plan, and we did the same. Prior to when you did the acquisition, and as I said, I do think you should bring the other side in. It's like getting married. If you don't tell someone they get married what they're getting themselves into, you probably end up with divorce, right? And but it should be. Not everyone does this.
I know.
But there's a base case, right? That the reason why
This is the ideal case scenario.
right, there's a base case. You bought this business for a reason, right? And what ends up happening, because this is human nature, the acquirer has a close-knit group of people that have all the information, right? And all of a sudden, they think they're going to be in control, right? And sometimes the CEO can't get out of their own way, and they kind of force that to happen, which alienates the other side.
Exactly.
So if you start the conversation by saying, this is going to be a best athlete company, and you bring the other group in, assuming that the base case is, laid out, and talk to them about why have you been acquired? Because you have talent that we don't have, because you have clients that we don't have, because you have expertise and knowledge in an industry we don't have, and you're gonna make all of us better. How does that feel? Versus Sarah's in charge of marketing, you're gonna get her direction, you're gonna get direction from her. Right? If I'm on the other end of that, I don't feel so great.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just want to go back. I mean, what I just said was best practice, and sometimes companies just don't have the resources to do it. But that's where, like GoTerra, what you're doing really comes in to help. Because when you do an M&A deal and you hire, it's not over the day you sign the deal. For instance, you often need dedicated HR resources. So when I was at AOL and we were in Nielsen, we had HR people. They were assigned. It's a big job. You can't just say to people who are working on other things, now you're going to do M&A integration on the HR side, on the tech side. And so you really have to be thoughtful about that. And if you don't have people in your company to do it, you do need to bring in help to do it. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, you're going to totally fuck this up. I'm sorry, but totally fuck it up. Like sales, I was just involved with an M&A deal, the company I'm on the board of, where, Michael, you've seen this, right? We're going to keep the sales team separate. So what about sales comm? You're on the board. We're going to keep it separate. No. That's you can't keep the sales comm separate and then the teams that are cross-selling. That whole thing falls apart. They said we had nobody internally to align the sales compensation. You should have run Yelp to do that. You should have us to do that.
Or what sometimes happens in a scenario like that is you need folks that actually create a matrix, right? Simply that says these are all our products and these are all the capabilities we have. And if we're going to be making changes, what falls out? Yeah, right? But you need people that know how to build that. You need people that can do that and then kind of communicate that out so that you can mitigate the risk.
Jason?
We've talked a bit about people do M&A for a lot of different reasons, but I'm curious, getting back to the 90-day theme, what are the metrics that are ubiquitous that you look for after 90 days that tell you whether or not your post-acquisition integration is on track or not?
Good question.
There's a base case. You talked about it, right? What's the base case? How are you tracking to that? So I'll give you an example of one scenario. This was a $1 billion organization that I was a lead integrator for. They happened to be a business that we bought out of Nielsen. It's the largest provider of media data in the radio space. I'm not going to mention the name of the company.
We know what it is. It's so funny.
I know, I wasn't going to mention it. So what ends up, what we ended up doing is that was one where we had a detailed plan. We created work streams. We had a base case of what we were going to do and how we were going to do it and the timing in which we had it. So we had milestones on what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and how it was going to happen. And we tracked against those milestones. Are they all weighted the same way? No, right? But we definitely knew that within the first 30 days, we want to get the finance teams together, right? Within the first 60 days, we wanted to get marketing and the infrastructure, not the technology, the infrastructure teams together, because we needed to start integrating for the broader company, and then you scale it out. So it really depends on why.
So specific metrics based on the type of deal, not something, because you mentioned G&A, if there's anything you were looking for on the G&A.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a playbook around it personally. I like to see it, but I think I have to be fair that over my career, the ones that have really worked well are the ones when you look from the customer in.
The customer facing stuff really has to be done within the first 90 days. Yeah. Because if you a press release, people will be wondering. So
Part of that playbook is a communications plan. It's big employee. Maybe it's
what did we do about branding? Some other stuff can wait. If you decide you want to merge offices and that can happen. But the customer-facing stuff really has to happen.
I think you have to adapt to the reason why the acquisition happened. Mm-hmm. So each M&A is actually different. And like what Michael was saying, that you create milestones, you create a plan, Gantt chart, whatever it is. And if you don't, achieve those results in the time that you expected. And if they're like a week off, it's something different. But if you're not even started, you know you're off. And one of the things I always feel like that sometimes integrations take long time for a lot of big impact things, you got to have some quick wins. And some of the quick wins you can have, which impacts the employees like this, is the IT and the HR and the finance. Like, at least we can talk to each other like family instead of like external
Or
first.
system integration is,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also think that and I'm not the HR person, but I think you have to have, because people figure stuff out pretty quickly. You know, if I'm being acquired, I'm part of an acquired company, I'm a sales account executive, I guarantee you I will find out quickly if my comp is the same as Sanguina's pa, and if she makes $50,000 a year more than I do or something like that. So for sure, people find that out. So you got to get on top of that stuff, because people will start to leave. And it's hard to do because every company has a different comp structure. It's a lot of work for the HR team to align that. Also titles, benefits. You have to get offended all that stuff.
And the attendance.
I mean, Michael, you've had to.
Yeah, you get people calling you, twitching and moaning.
Of course. And then at work also. Look, I think part of what you have to think about is there's a reasonable person sort of thought process, right? Which is, how do you want to be treated? All those things your mother told you, they actually are true, right? And I don't want to be left in the dark, and I don't want to feel like I'm less than just because I was acquired, right? But again, let's go back to your comment around sort of, why did we make this happen? We had a situation, a real world example, where I worked for a very large company that acted like a holding company. And so literally we had 3 or 4 salespeople hitting the same client.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, it happens all the time.
Right? I mean, this is not great.
That's a nightmare.
That's a nightmare. Now, they all happen to be billion-dollar businesses, right? And it took a while. Had we done it the right way, we probably would have thought about each client, who were the people that touched that client, and in that process, look at compensation, look at, okay, are we going to have what's called a client business partner model, where they bring the people in, or are you going to select, this is the winner? Yeah. But once you do that, be prepared that those other people will go. And are they touching the same contact in the company? That's where it really goes bad. And we had a situation at B&U where we had the same customer getting pitched several times. And in fact, there was one famous story, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but this was told to me, that in the offices, in the lobby, there were 3 people from our company at different times pitching products to the same person. That was a very famous. That was
Totally possible.
Of the cases where you have cultural challenges, for instance, you mentioned pre-stage of the deal, you have communication style, and how do you handle that, the mindset?
I think, I'll speak, I'm sure other people have a point of view, but, for me, it's understanding it up front. You understand it up front. In a recent transaction that I worked on, I brought an old line cybersecurity company with a modern SaaS business, and I brought them together, two totally different cultures. One came out of Intel, some of a large organization, and they had that large organization mindset, and the other one was a bootstrapped cybersecurity firm, and we brought them together, and the cultural differences were very profound. However, what you want to do is create a way to look at it that took their culture and values and the culture and values of the other company and find the commonality and then stress those. You want to protect your grandmother from losing her money from a scammer, and so do you. There's no better calling, right? And you start working on the commonalities. What ends up happening is, for example, like benefits. Let's put it tactically. We had Gold Play benefits in one company, and the other one had less than.
Yeah.
So we try to find a way to bring them together. And that may mean you have to take certain things down and bring certain things up so that it matches up.
Could we do a little bit like Gordada on culture?
Yeah, I also culturally we need to.
Yes.
I do think it's important again to figure out how you then keep those lines of communication open, and culture is a really big issue. So I'm on the board of CDW, which is the largest IT solutions provider in North America, and we do a lot of acquisitions. And CDW has a very strong culture. It's a very flat organization. No one calls each other employees. Everyone calls each other co-worker. It's very, it's a great culture, and there's not a lot of attrition there. But what we found when we acquired companies is we didn't always have the cultural alignment. So they adopted this thing, they call it the beanbag chair room, where when they do an acquisition, like every week or every other week, everybody goes into this room and basically sort of, the people that are leading the integration along with the leadership of the acquired company, and they sort of have it out. I mean, not in a negative way, but then we need to get it. I know that sounds crazy and sounds like therapy, but it's really, this community, it is like a mirror.
It can make a difference.
It hugely, because then the acquired company feels like they're part of it too. They don't, very often they feel ignored, right? They feel ignored. I mean, think about it. It would be like, you get acquired, everyone tells you you're great, you're really vital, and then it's like everybody else disappears the minute the deal is done. It happens a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to share one story. This was a long time ago. I was at GE Aviation, and they asked me to lead this integration of about a $200 million company. And I hired my team. So in GE, the GE way was we actually created the team before the acquisition. So obviously it was an internal team. So each function was represented. And one of the things I told my team was you got to treat the acquired company as customers, at least for the first 2-3 months. And after that, the honeymoon is over. But you got to treat them like that first. And the first thing that was going to happen after we acquired them, within a month, we had to cut paychecks from GE for thousands of people. And that is where the mistakes had happened in the past. So I had done all the interviewing with the previous staff and figured out where the problems were. And so I told the HR corporate people that they were going to test this. And it's still a system, but we were going to test it ahead of time. And they said, we've never done this. I said, well, you were in the spot. And we did it. We tested the systems. And we did a town hall the first day. And so the CEO spoke and then I spoke. And I told people that if you have problems in your paycheck, here is my cell phone number, call me. And so as a result, it put my team on notice, and it also built trust with the acquired team. And guess what? As a result of that, where we used to have defect, there was one defect, and we fixed it with FedEx within 24 hours. But I think treating the acquired company in a different way can actually bring you a lot of trust. And what both of them have been also saying is transparency and communication is what, and you got to walk the talk. When you say something, you got to do that. You can't just say something and do something else.
And also, so when I was at AOL, we got a company that is an Israeli company, and we would search to the integration, so get on our email. I mean, they refused to go on our email system. They said, you're hampering our creativity. We just going to be on our email system. They moved it to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times that we were I mean, the whole thing was a nightmare. And you know what? We shouldn't have acquired the company because that sort of behavior would have, they literally didn't want us to do anything with them. Yeah. Is there anything you could have done? The plans, the transparency at the beginning, just being clear with them. When we acquire you, these are the things that you're going to plan to do.
That also goes out to some of the leadership on their end. So that those is issue in RFNR and not communicating and setting expectations.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, that's right.
That's exactly right.
And the thing is, when you're acquiring a company, they're trying to give as little information as possible if they get acquired. So you don't have, as an acquiring company, don't have all the information. And the hurdles that you're going to face come alive after you sign on the dotted line, and then you realize, oh my God, they said that he was the best talent or she was the best talent. They actually are not. It's actually these other two people who are the top talent.
When you sell your house, you're not going to do structural changes.
Yeah.
You're going to paint the house. And so that happens in every sale. In every house that I've sold, I paint the house. I'm not going to start, right? And so it looks nice and fresh. And so it happens. But to your point, from a communication perspective, depending on the size of the acquisition, in this large one that we talked about, we created a bi-weekly newsletter. And it said up front,
That's interesting.
your paychecks are going to come. You're going to go from. We had a mismatched paychecks. They're all going to get aligned on this day. And guess what? Everybody's going to be on the email system by this day. And it eliminated the discussion. You know what was the biggest issue? That the paychecks now had a different name. And people were like, well, that's horrible.
Like also people go PTO system.
People will always have things to complain about, no matter what.
But reasonable people find reasonable ways not to complain. And they say, okay, that's, and then
Yeah. But I think
Structuring there, and I don't know way where facilitating integration is a
we had a conversation about this recently.
I have never seen,
Earnout.
almost always see, I very, very rarely see an earnout be successful.
yes.
It's really, really hard. We're on a door rank to Bozy. Why is it hard? What makes it hard? You're integrating the company, right? So if I say I will pay you sort of an additional part of the purchase price if you hit this revenue and EBITDA, often there's ways that they now get sued over a lot of them because the company, the acquired company's leadership comes back and they say, well, you were controlling my budget.
Right.
And so you prevented me from making the investments that I needed to make to be able to hit my revenue.
For them not integrating with your email system is also creating friction. It's creating.
So you just end up with a bunch of unhappy people. I mean, there are some instances when you have to give them the ability to hit the earnout on their own without basically being able to come back and say, it was your fault. You didn't let me go to that conference. You didn't let me buy this piece of technology to hit the earnout. And so it's really, really hard. I actually often did phased purchase prices where you would, instead of giving all the purchase price not tied to specific metrics, and then at least you got retention value out of that. Earnouts sound great if you're a finance person. They also often destroy culture.
Yes. And people go do things that they shouldn't be doing to make earnout work out for them. It may be bad for the company.
So you want to ask something, Coco? You were.
Well, no, I had a company that I founded and then we merged and then we sold. And we originally had planned in the sale to do an earnout. And I had partners and everybody would be that. We all had different points of pain and points of like what we wanted. And I wanted it to be clean and move forward, but like my partners wanted to make as much money as they possibly could. But when you get down to trying to negotiate a deal with earnout, it's like you have to, like, who makes decisions on the budget and how, like, who gets to decide how much to invest in scale? Who's going to, like, what happens when there's so many pieces to it that we ended up deciding not to, but to me, it could be part of it was afterwards. Who's going to be running the show? It creates all of this confusion for the organization going forward. And there's all these different
Double accounting records.
And it's also, there's just, nobody knows really what's most important to do.
On both sides.
On both sides.
Right, on both sides.
And sometimes the teams don't know why their boss is behaving this way.
Yes.
Because the team is not getting the earnout, it's them.
Well, and also, there's also a lot of pieces that you can't always share.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it really does create, I was so grateful we didn't, and And everybody, all the founders I know, and you guys, you work with really big companies that aren't working necessarily with founders, but it really does not work out well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some places where it does work. So if you know that you can control a budget at least for the year after the deal,
Or if it's
and that's all. Then you have control to hit that earnout. Or sometimes I've been involved where you buy a company, they have a deal that's pending with a customer, and you say, well, if that deal comes through, like a big SaaS deal, then I'll pay you. But that's more time bound as opposed to like a 3-year earnout. Yeah, I also had a deal as AOL. We acquired startup company, founder. Actually, now a very famous guy in Silicon Valley, you knows the name. He did actually work with Elon Musk. We get an earnout, big earnout. And he started down this path, not control the company, all that. The business leader who we reported to, he didn't want to deliver the bad news to him about the earnout. So instead, I had to do that because, I was in development first, and I had to leave. I threatened to sue me, threatened to sue the company. And so we ended up negotiating something. We paid out a portion of the earnout just to keep him quiet. And like to this day, he really reputationally hurt our business. Well, like going back, the Silicon Valley, saying you were bad. I mean, it was ridiculous.
It all comes out to in leadership. You have on one hand these authoritarian leadership, on the other hand you have someone who's very collaborative. And I think you need to find a common ground between the two.
Yeah, but if you think about the earnout situation, I know we want to sort of talk about other things. You as a seller want to maximize the amount of money that you get. So when you project out, you're maybe not as conservative as you should be.
Yes.
Because that's how you're going to get paid. On the acquirer side, we're built with a lot more skepticism. So we try to downplay it on our books, but we're going to hold you to what you said on the purchase, right? And so you're almost building in friction that's not necessary. Now I've been on the other side of it where we wanted a deal so bad.
Well, that's what happens. Right. That's what happens. That's why you do it.
Right?
You want to do the deal.
You want to do the deal. So the deal person who's involved in it will make a deal, and then through no fault of the company that has been acquired, they get this infusion of cash to buy other things, and now it's murky as to what they had to do to actually reach so the acquired firm feels great, and the corporate people who bought the business feel like, oh my God, I got taken for a ride.
It's like getting married under false pretense. It always thought some leadership and transparency, but it's hard to do. They're hard to do. So obviously, I'm sure you know a lot of people that are passive aggressive and don't actually like to be transparent, and it's really, really hard to do.
I'd love to dive into customers and team members a little bit more. Okay. So you've talked a little bit about it, but I know the metrics differ of how you judge success. It's based on why you acquired, it's based on the deal. What I've seen typically is, yes, you've got your financials, but you've also got a measure about customer churn or employee attrition. Talk to us about those two areas. In the first 90 days, what's most important for the customers? What's most important for the team members?
Sort of depends again, on the business. I don't really have you an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, so when we're talking about customers, I think I've seen it go much better when the CEO gets involved, sends a personal letter to each of the clients and says, we're making this acquisition because we want to provide greater capabilities on behalf of you. Right? That's really what I've seen work really well. What I've seen work a lot less well is if you start with the communication from the salesperson.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're saying, I don't really understand what it means for me. They don't really talk to me. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden, there's instability that's thrown into a relationship. right? Nobody wants to be with someone that says, "Yeah, I like you sometimes," right? You want someone that says, "I love you," and you mean everything to me, right? That's what you want in life. And I think there's no different with customers. We love our customers. We love them. We want to keep them.
Well, Stacy's company, Bill, the CEO, I thought he did a great job. He actually was on the phone with the top, I don't know how many customers. He called them personally to say, here's what's happening and here's why, here's what's in it for you. And so that kind of to your example, I thought that was a great thing.
I think to that question, I think the most important thing is to have a clear vision for the company after you acquire the company. You acquired it for some reason, and did it change how you're going to serve the customer? Did it change how it impacts the employee? Did it change how the valuation of the company changes? And having that clarity and transparency helps with the communication to customers. Like, okay, we bought this company and we are doing this, that, and the other, so we can serve you better. Will you buy it? So you will see that in revenue growth. And then with employees, you have to talk about how it helps them. What's in it for them? How they get more growth opportunities as a result of this stuff. And of course, there are some cost synergies where redundant jobs will be reduced. But the point is, if you're good, you're going to have lots of opportunities in the organization. And at the same time, I think it is probably best, and you'll figure this out in the first month or so, where are the hurdles? And these hurdles could be technology hurdles, where it could, in most cases, it's people hurdle. It's the stakeholder hurdles. And you got to figure out how to address them right away. If they're not going to go away because of acquisition, and they're going to stay, you need to, as a CEO, as a C-suite, you need to figure out how you're going to address that and have a very open conversation. Like, okay, you don't like this, you like this, we need to come to an agreement because we got to serve customers and our employees.
And people know, you know, if you're a part of your company who's the finance team, they know that you may not need them after. I mean, they're not dumb. They know. So, you know, I would say, go to them and say, hey, we need you for the next 6 months. Yeah, you know, they much more appreciate that.
Yes. Everybody knows how much they want to hear. I'm thinking about my employees. So when we did the double transactions, it's like they want to know the very basic things you think you don't need to tell them.
The me issues.
What's my skip? Okay, with
I'm like, and all the like the specifics, and am I like, and how long am I guaranteed to have a job? And if there's ones you want to have stay bonuses, get them stay bonuses in the first couple of weeks. Like it just like the more you can be, it says they are scared to death. Yes. Even if you have
Away with city. Just assume the worst.
What are some of the best practices for keeping tabs on that, the pulse of all the team members? Yeah. What's some of the best strategies for doing that?
I mean, there's a number of ways to do it, but I think depending on the size of the organization, with really large organizations, that newsletter component, we had town halls where ask me anything was the sort of mindset, right? And you're able to answer those questions. I think it's your point. Identify the key folks that you need for 6 months, get them the stay bonus, whatever. I highly recommend you don't go beyond that. Because I lived through a situation where we were held hostage and it became part of the entitlement situation that, oh, well, every time I have to do something different, you're going to pay me somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not the culture you want to create, you want to breed. So for me, it's open and honest dialogue.
Yeah.
Early and often, like voting in Chicago.
Early voting, opening the door. Don't forget.
That's right. So and then finally, you have to be open to criticism if it's given to you the right way. The worst thing you could do is shut someone down and one of these to ask me anything and say, well, that was just pretty stupid. Yeah. You know, it could be stupid. You know, but the point is that that's not what you want to say, and you want that far to say.
And bring in help. I'm involved with the company now. It's private equity backed company, it's a medium-sized company. They didn't have an HR team that had ever done anything like this before. And we did an acquisition. Actually, we did 2 acquisitions. Wow. I mean, it didn't work out. They didn't bring in help. I mean, this stuff takes, Michael, you've done this dozens and dozens of times, and you have a big HR team that you work, and I had that at AOL. We had that, but most companies don't have that at all. And so definitely get ahead of it. It's again, it's not just the day the deal happens. Another problem, and I'm sort of going in a different direction, and this is from a board perspective, and we're on a board, is that often no one knows whether the synergies were ever hit. You can have a plan.
We said that's right.
Synergies. You buy a company for $100 million. You're planning these synergies. Board meetings.
We're talking about one right now.
What?
The acquisition.
There's often very little reporting done back to the board as to was this successful? There's no sort of post-mortem. So if you don't have a plan, you can't actually measure whether you've been
I
successful.
guess that goes back to your question, which is the board then after 90 days isn't asking the management team, can you show me whether this is going well or not in some empirical way? It's just like, well,
They are, and so sometimes on the board, the management's, everything's going great. I mean, they all really share mesmo baseline data.
They work backwards. Their own narrative says that this was a great buy. Yeah. But that's hindsight, right? And so I think in one specific business, and I think I know the one you're talking about, we and there were several actually, but we made this acquisition, $100 million acquisition, let's say, and it was supposed to provide all these amazing things, but there were actually no numbers attached to those amazing things that we're going to actually do. Right? And so we come back a year from now, it hasn't hit its base case. We're trying to understand whether we have a business development team that works or doesn't work, and there are no sort of benchmarks. And so that's something that we're working through. So even knowledgeable boards, get this after the fact. So we approve it. We generally at a board, we approve the acquisition. We approve the expenditure of money depending on some sort of threshold, and then you let it run. Right? It happens. But that's generally where boards stop, and we're trying to.
We have a board member who's like, I'm not going to approve another acquisition unless I know whether you're good at this. It's a fair question. It's a share, but
or if it's financial metrics, turnover, talent, things that you guys would manage that we wouldn't be able to measure, that you would be.
Yeah, but
I mean, revenue. EBITDA. Am I getting?
It's like 4 or 5 metrics. I think this is surprising to me.
you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right that we should have metrics that will clearly tell you whether you did or not. But then there are other factors that come into play that you also go do. And the question becomes then, did it happen because of the acquisition or did it happen
Yeah, but business is an existing business already, or is it a brand new business that you're setting up?
Is it a defensive acquisition?
Yeah.
So and also we did a lot of defensive acquisitions because we thought someone had a technology that could disintermediate us.
Yeah.
So we'd buy them.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
But if you ask the finance person, they'll mention their gut whether it worked or not. And you're right. It was a good suggestion.
You don't hear any bad news. What if you don't need bad news? It's everything.
It's like, but we haven't lost more customers. We need jobs.
The issue that I think we see when public companies do acquisition, their data is very clear, as clear as can be. Private equity companies or private companies when they're acquiring, there is zero data. And the thing is, nobody wants to accept that the mergers and acquisitions are not going well. PE wants to report everything is great. Portfolio company wants to report everything is great. So if the boards are not squeezing them on their throat, you are not going to get that data. So it's very difficult to get that data. We think 50 to 70% companies fail in acquisitions and mergers. They don't do that.
Yeah, I think it's more.
Yeah.
Remember, it's funny, I'm sorry, there was one other point, I think, Lynda, you might have thought about this as well in our discussion, that there's always, inside a PE firm or inside the company, there's always a champion for an acquisition.
yeah,
Right?
sponsor.
As a parent, your child is the smartest,
most beautiful. They dress exceptionally well, and they're never going to be at fault, right? That's not the case, right? So now you've got someone in the business that's never going to accept it.
Yeah.
And depending on where they are in the PE hierarchy, no one's going to want to cross them.
So other than few people in the deals and stuff, you don't know. You don't know. Heather.
Yeah, I have a quick question on the transitioning talent side of this, and that's kind of what actually brought me in contact with Mr. Michael here. I've been a partner for Nielsen. I was on site during that huge rift of the company that will not be named. And I love Michael would always talk about the Nielsen experience, that offboarding was as important as onboarding. So I'm curious, so a lot of you are on boards now. I've been hearing when private equity is involved, they don't care about transition services. They don't care so much about the talent leaving because it's about the dollars frequently for them. And I've had some people I put in pilots because I stole my whole career for, 20 some years has been helping talent transition and coaching. And this gentleman who's in service now, he came through a friend of mine. And the private equity firm bought them and said, well, we're now a new company, so you've only been here for this long, so you only get 2 weeks severance, instead of taking into account the longevity at the whole company. So this sounded like a very naughty PE firm instead of honoring the talent. So my question is just about when you're on boards, do people talk about wanting to support the transitioning talent, or is like they could just Google job search? Like, do you think there's still that need to care to protect the brand? Because that's a big part, we feel, who are protecting the brand of the Nielsen's, of the company, so they could get back out there, say, it sucked that I got fired, but they taken such good care of me. And that have boomerang employees, and to just be able to, on Reddit, on Glassdoor, everyone has a voice now, crazy or not. So there's just, I've seen it shifting over the past 2 decades to that, but don't know if people really care in the same way, and if private equity considers transition services, or like, oh, God bless, good luck.
I mean, not really, actually. PE firms historically have not. Depends on the size of the PE firm.
Yeah.
If you think about the type of company, I hate to continue talking about Nielsen, but if you think about Nielsen, 80% of their business came from alumni. So for me, the design of the Nielsen experience was, at the end, I want to make sure that, they would call us when they need a project done, because I knew that's where a lot of it was going to come from. On the later stage tech companies that I've worked in, the PE firm didn't care as much, because their time horizon is 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And so, do I care about the long-term effects of some of the things I'm doing today? No. That's why every time I work with a PE firm, I have a strong contract, so that I know exactly what's going to happen at the end. We sign my release before I join, and let's part as friends, and I'm there.
Yeah. I think in the future, though, PE companies that actually do care, they will create a track record that portfolio companies that become portfolio would want to be acquired by that PE company instead of.
There are some that do that. There are some.
Yeah.
By the way,
Right.
Vista is sort of, they have a very clear playbook. They acquire a company, and they pretty much fire, the whole leadership team and install a team in a lower cost venue. I mean, that's their playbook. I think they are pretty upfront about it, and maybe that's a good thing. They're not transparent, but that's completely their playbook, because I know a bunch of people who have been at Vista acquired companies, and it's just the playbook.
Do you think, the rise of private credit, that the attitude is different with private credit versus private? Just when they're a little bit more, maybe there's a little bit more of a human side to.
I haven't really seen it. I haven't really seen it.
A lot of private credit is, of course, client fraud.
Yeah, probably. I haven't really. Well, and there is a shift that there's retail coming into the private credit markets. Right. So now you and I can go on Yield Street and actually invest in a fund that does that, right? But
Yes.
But I think for the most part, I think there are playbooks, as Lynda said, that they follow, depending on why they thought the acquisition should have been made. They'll make adjustments. I think the smaller the PE firm, the less likely they are to do a transition plan. And the larger PE firms get the value proposition, so they're likely to do it. And I've had the opportunity to work with Blackstone and KKR, and even within their own portfolios, they have varying degrees of how they think about it. In the situation that I talked about, where we had gold-plated benefits versus not so much, the private equity firm decided that they wanted to do the minimum viable approach across their portfolios, as opposed to what they considered very rich plan, because they didn't really care about what the future looked like.
Interesting. All right, I'm conscious of time.
This has been helpful.
Well, I'm going to ask just one final thing. For each of you, again, concentrating on first 90 days, your biggest tip, biggest trap to not fall into. Biggest tip to do, biggest trap not to fall into. Michael.
So let's see. The biggest trap is don't think you know it all. Right? Don't think you know it all. And boy, that's challenging with some CEOs. And I think the biggest tip, I think we talked about it, is communicate early and often. Do as much planning up front. In some cases, even before the deal happens. And people are hesitant to do that because they feel like it's a waste of time, because if it doesn't happen, then we just waste those time. But if you have a game plan on how you're going to communicate, what the work streams that you're going to look at are going to be, who's going to lead those work streams on your side, and then you identify on the other side, you're going to be much better.
Thank you. Sangeeta.
I think sometimes senior leadership thinks it's a clear-cut deal and it will be very easy, and they delegate it to their people to go execute, and they don't really understand the human psyche of the two sides, saying, this is how I have done it and worked really well. This is how I have done it and worked really well. And you can fall into that trap and it will just go on forever and you'll really never get to resolution. And the trick to me is to remove the specific trap and bias. There is no better way to get a third party come in and validate it or invalidate your assumptions. And maybe show them a newer way that is better than both their ways. And we see that a lot. Sometimes it is a newer way that is better than both. Sometimes, yes, there is a acquiring company that has better process or better system, then sometimes the acquired company has that. And take that. So
Thank you. And Lynda.
I agree with what my esteemed colleagues are saying. I mean, definitely it's valuable to plan in advance, absolutely. And by the way, sometimes I've done it by actually creating time between signing and closing and using that period to do that. Even if you technically don't have to do it, it gives you the time to put that plan together. People always want to get things done quickly. It's like I keep bringing them there. It's like a prenup, sort of, making sure you're anticipating what some of these issues are. And make sure you listen to the other side too. I mean, I think often people don't listen. You have to allow some time to listen, to understand their businesses, to understand why do other benefits packages that way? Why is their sales incentive plan that way? This stuff takes time. And have a SWAT team internally that's going to do it. Don't assign it to someone else who's already doing 1,000 other things, because this is a big, big priority. And bring in the help when you need it. Big company. I mean, I had a big team at AOL, a huge team at M&A, and an integration team, and a huge team dedicated on the HR side. Not a lot of companies have that. I think Microsoft has that, and Salesforce has that. But most companies in America don't have that. Yeah. And so that's where you need to bring in the help. And to go to the CEOs and we can't do this. We're not going to be successful. We're not going to be set up for success unless we.
And I think the return on investment is huge. You already made the investment and acquisition, and by cheaping out on not spending enough effort and resources in it, you're not going to see the value.
Yeah. All right. Thank you three so much. This has been amazing. Hope this was helpful to you too. And thank you.
think we should get some pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
Do self-portraits.
Okay.
We'll go for you. We'll
always
with
all right.
the dogs. We'll.
Oh, with the dogs. They are asleep.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay.